Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created a watercolour shaker card. I'm going to start by using the Mama Elephant City Sidewalks stamp set, which is a new stamp set. And I'm going to be using one of the larger city images along with a tree and a sentiment. And I'm going to start with using some Canson watercolour paper. I'm going to be watercolouring the image in the background before I then change out the cardstock for the front of the card and the base. So I'm going to stamp this using my Misty, but before I do that I'm positioning it in the middle of the card. Because I'm going to be creating a shaker card, I'm just placing a circle die, and I think this is an X-cut one. It's an old one that I've had for a while. And I just want to place it to make sure it's in the right area before I then create the other layers of the card. So I want to make sure it's all centered. So the good thing about the Misty is you can place everything and then smush your stamp and then pick up the die and you're ready to go. So for this I'm going to use some Ranger's Archival Jet Black ink because it's waterproof, and I'll turn it around to show you the right way. And this obviously won't react with the watercolours, so I know I'm in safe hands. With using the watercolour, the other reason why I use the Misty is because, especially with a new stamp set, you can see it doesn't stamp properly, so I have to then stamp it. I think I ended up stamping this one 4 times before I got a perfect image. But again, with the Misty you can just keep inking it up and stamping it in the same position, and you're not going to get any movement and it won't waste my cardstock. So once I've got the image in place, I'm then going to use the Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolours from Japan, and I love these watercolours. I've used them once before in my videos, but you can see that I've done swatches on the inside of the lid for all the colours, and you get quite a lot of colours for the money that they cost. They're not massively expensive paints, and they last a long time. So as you can see, I had a bit of trouble trying to get the plastic out, but I got there in the end. So as I was doing this, I didn't take any notes of the colours I was using because I was experimenting, so sorry about that. But I mainly used blues, purples, and a slight bit of green and yellow. And for the main blue, I'm using a kind of marine blue and mixed with some darker blues, and I use a dark purple. And I'm playing around with the shades, so I tend to add more paint on to the left, and then I use my water brush to then feather it out to the lighter side on the right. Yeah, so I just kind of play around with it, and I add more layers before I then do the background, and I'm just experimenting as I go with this one. I didn't really know what colours I wanted to use, but I'm happy with how it came out in the end. So I'll switch on some music, I'll let you finish watching me do the painting, and then I will come back to you in a minute. So once I've finished painting and I set it all aside to dry, I'm then going to work on a piece of acetate which I've cut to match the size of the background panel. It's a bit hard to see on the camera, but you'll see it shine every now and again. And I'm just going to place this over the top of the background panel, and I'm going to stamp the image again in black StazOn ink. StazOn won't come off on acetate, so I know it's not going to smudge and smear. This piece of acetate will be towards the front of the card, so when I put the shaker bits in later on, it will still show what the image is, even though the shaker bit's sliding around. So that's why I just wanted to add this onto the acetate for a bit more interest, and so you could actually see what the image behind still was. So as you can see, I just needed to stamp this a couple of times, but the joys of the MISTI makes life a lot easier. So once I've finished stamping on the acetate and then working on the front panel of the card, I'm going to use some embossing and the sentiment from the stamp set, which says greetings of the season. I've rounded it on a stamping block because I want it to go all the way around the circle, and I'm using the Ranger Perfect Medium embossing powder, ink, sorry, with Ranger Liquid Platinum, because everybody knows it's my favourite, embossing powder. And I'm just stamping and then putting that powder on so I can see where I've stamped, because stamping clear on white is a little bit difficult. And this was the second time I tried this, because the first time I didn't put that embossing powder on and I messed it up. So to get the circle cut out of the cardstock, I'm using Nina Solar white cardstock for the front panel, and the circle die that I used earlier to position the cityscapes, the city sidewalk stamps, I then used to cut the circle out of the front panel. So as you can see, I managed to get this right this time, and I'm then going to heat emboss all that embossing powder, and I just use the Perfect Pearls brush just to brush away any of that excess that I don't want sticking to the page. And yeah, this is my favourite embossing powder. I absolutely love the colour. It's somewhere between, well, it's platinum, so it's somewhere between gold and silver, but it's a beautiful embossing powder. So I'll kind of show you how it's going to look as I layer these three pieces together. Now, to assemble a shaker card, the first thing you need to do is stick your acetate to your window, because this is going to be the front panel of the card. So I'm using some strong sticky adhesive to position and stick down that acetate panel to the front of my card. So that will be the front of the shaker card, and then the watercolour section will be the back. I'm then going to use some 3mm Scotch foam tape cut down, and I'm going to be doubling this up because I want it to be quite high, so the shaker bits move around quite a lot. So the sides are quite thin, so around the circle bit I took a chunk out of the foam tape, but only just a small amount because I don't want the beads to leak. So I'm just going to secure some foam tape around the whole outside edge of the shaker card before I then work on the middle bit. To double up the foam tape, all I did was I took a proper width and length of foam tape, I cut it down the middle lengthwise, and then I stuck the two sticky edges together before placing it on my card. And as you can see, the thin strips are pretty much the right size for those edges. I only had to take a small amount out around the edge of the circle. Now for the inside bit, I only want the shaker bits in the circle area. I don't want it across the whole card so that it stays within that circle image. So again, I'm going to double the foam tape so that it's the same height as the sides. And to get foam tape in a circle, the best thing to do is cut small snippets into the foam tape like I'm doing here, and then it will bend to a curved edge. So you'll see in a second, once I've finished doing that, I'll peel one side of the adhesive off, and then as I start to put it into the card, I can then just bend and shape that card with the slots that are in, and it should fit that circle edge pretty much perfectly. If there are any gaps, I just use some small piece of foam tape that I've got left, or just to fill those edges, and I'll do exactly the same on the other side. So on the left hand side here, there was just a tiny bit where I thought some of my shaker elements might come out, so I just use a spare piece of foam tape to plug that gap. Shaker cards can take a little bit of time to do, but they're quite fun, and there's something a bit different to do every now and again. So for the shaker elements, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of these micro beads, and these are the Creative Expressions Snow White micro beads, and I'm also going to use some of the silver ones as well. And then at the end I decided to throw in some iridescent star sequins that I had lying around. One of the things I've noticed in the past when creating shaker cards is the sequins and bits can stick to that foam tape, so I just use my anti-static tool just to go around that edge, and then I use a dry cloth just to take the dust off that acetate in the centre so that it doesn't distort the image. And then I just spoon some of these micro beads into the circle area before I then add my sequin bits. These are just old ones. I think I got them from Hobbycraft. I've had them ages, so I thought I'd just add them in and use them up. So then I'm kind of making sure I've got enough or not too much for that centerpiece, and I didn't want tons because I still wanted you to see the image behind, so I wanted enough that you could see things and it looked like snowfall at the bottom, and you could shake it and it looked like it was snowing. So now I'm going to stick the two panels together. In hindsight, I probably should have put the foam tape and the shaker bits on the watercolour panel and then put the other bit on top, but I managed to get everything lined up perfectly, thankfully. So as you can see, when you shake the card, it shakes all these pretty things around that scene, and then when it's not shaking, it looks like snow at the bottom of the card with the houses sat on top. So to finish off the card, all I'm going to do is use some strong double-sided sticky tape. I can't remember what brand this is, but it's a really good one. Just to put it to the back of the panel, and then I'll adhere it to a 300 GSM, which I think is about £140, I think, panel, white card panel, and this is an A6 card, a little note card, and then we are pretty much done. I wanted to kind of keep it fairly simple for a shaker card, and as you can see, it's all glittery and shiny and pretty. So I hope this inspired you to make some shaker cards and you enjoyed the video. I do have other Christmas videos, Christmas card videos on my channel at the moment, and I'll continue to make some more up until Christmas time. So please enjoy the videos, give me a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.